What the hell are you doing here? This is a fancy restaurant. You are a loser and unpopular. This is not the place for someone with low standing like you. You're making my food and drinks taste bad. Get the hell out of here, will ya? This is not a place for poor people. Normally, public facilities are places where anyone can come. But due to the strange competition in human society, some people can't go to places where they should be able to go freely, or they are made to feel uncomfortable just by going there. People may use their own common sense to categorize and divide others. To be frank, I thought I had nothing to do with such a human society. However, once I entered the society, it looked like I was wrong. The obstacles arrive from the opposite side, no matter how much you try to avoid them. When people get together, rules are made. It is not easy to escape from the bonds of those rules. My name is Thomas Jones. My mother died in an accident when I was little. Since then, I have lived in a dad-son household. My dad has been running a small bookstore in Miami since before my mom died. He has been protecting our family for a long time. He didn't care about unnecessary things and didn't compete with others. He had always been dedicated to his work, replacing his beliefs with his dreams. My father exemplified this life's philosophy. My mom was probably attracted by his attitude and they got married. I had one older sister. Her name was Christina. Christina was always close to her grandma and mom. I guess she just couldn't accept the fact that our mom had passed away. When I was in kindergarten, Christina was in junior high school. After her mom died, she committed suicide. My dad's depression at the time was terrible. Even though I was a preschooler, I could understand my dad's depression at that time. I couldn't say anything to him for a while, but he managed to get back on his feet. He worked hard to make a living again for himself and me. He worked hard to protect the foundation of my life. My dad says he was able to recover because I was there for him. He loved my mom from the bottom of his heart. That's why he regards me, the sole piece of crystal my mother left behind, as her alter ego. He also remembered Christina, who died because she was born into this family. It seemed like my dad had the biggest goal of his to raise me with a lot of affection and make me a fine person in society. My dad rarely said anything about this. But when I looked at how he treated me, I eventually understood that. I guess the link between father and son made me recognize that. So when I graduated from high school, I actually wanted to start working right away. In other words, to help my dad. I wanted to take over his bookstore and make things a little easier for him. I also wanted to make him more and more happy that I was born as his son. That was my true wish. But my dad said, "Do what you want. You don't need to worry about me. I'm not expecting you to sacrifice your life to help me. That's not going to make me happy." He prioritized my dreams first. Until then, my dream had been to join an IT company. I had this dream when I was in junior high school. I wanted to become an engineer who could work in various fields. I wanted to design my own life in my own way. I certainly had such a dream. Dad. But I made it clear that I did not want to leave him. I didn't rent an apartment or condo in the city. I convinced him that I would commute to work from his house. My dad was an old man who would soon be 60 years old. Looking back on the miserable life that had been forced upon us up to that point, I did not want to leave him alone at home. I managed to graduate from college and entered the IT company I had hoped to work for. My family was poor, so even though I went to college, it was a public college. I graduated from a local not-so-famous college. I was able to obtain a college degree on par with others and enter an IT company, which was my second choice. This alone was enough to make me happy. My dad was also sincerely happy, and bought me a cake at the nearest supermarket on the day I got the job. We had a small celebration for my employment, just the two of us. I was really happy that day. Ever since I joined the company, I worked hard every day to achieve a promotion for my dad, who supported my dreams. Time flew by and 3 years had passed since I joined the company. My dad was approaching his 60th birthday, but he was still working hard. He continued to support me in our life together. I suppose you could say that this was an advantage of being self-employed. I can still work. This is what my dad always said to me. He was working energetically, trying to keep his mind and body strong. That was the source of my current peace of mind. The fact that my dad was well was the source of my happiness and my strong point. I can't believe my dad has reached 60. Since then, I had planned to arrange a celebration for my dad when he turned 60. But I was so busy with work that I didn't have the time for that. I had been assigned a growing quantity of tasks. A new project has started up in our company. For this reason, a fairly huge amount of work has been assigned to everyone. Originally, our company did not have a large number of employees. Although it is a well-known company, it was considered a small to medium-sized company. Perhaps that was why the work quota for one person was quite large. I was working overtime and had worked extremely hard. At that time, the section chief of my department was replaced. Jacob, who had been in the section chief until then, was promoted to the head of the department. On the other hand, Naomi Lee, a female worker from the parent company called Powerful Corporation, replaced Jacob. Naomi was an elite employee. She graduated from a prestigious national college in New York and held a high position at the headquarters. However, she was a very strict person. Or rather, she was a person with some peculiarities. Well, it might still sound nice if I'd said so. Naomi possessed an arrogant attitude similar to that of an elite. She was cruel to anyone she considered lesser to her. In that sense, she was a strict person. In other words, she was the type of person who adjusted her attitude towards others according to how she perceived them. She was not my type of person, and her blade was soon pointed only at me. Everyone in my department was capable at their jobs. I was the only one who was not yet able to do all the work assigned to me. I'm doing well all the work I'm given. That's how I'd considered myself, but it turned out that I was completely wrong. People regarded me as someone incapable of doing his job. Hey, Thomas! Haven't you finished the documents I asked you for this morning? I'm sorry. I'll get right on it. I still hadn't completed the paperwork to compile data and statistics. I was scolded severely by Naomi again that day. However, that task took a lot of time. Normally, it would take a whole day to complete. It was almost impossible to finish it in the morning. But I had to do it because my boss ordered me to. This was also the result of the strained competition in the human society. I felt that way somehow. Forget it. If I leave it to you, you won't be able to finish it by the end of the day. Mary, please finish this by tomorrow. After that, the task of making documents was left to Mary, who was a little senior to me. Naomi told me to finish it by noon, but she told Mary to do it by tomorrow. What's with this difference? Yes, that's when I realized Naomi was intentionally saying things like that to annoy me. In other words, she was just having fun watching me struggle with the work I couldn't finish. After that, she continued to do such things. She assigned me a large amount of work, and when she realized I couldn't handle it, "Can't you even do this? That's why we don't want useless people." She even said stuff like this to hurt my personality and bring me down. By this time, I was completely aware of her attitude towards me. She wanted me to quit this company. I suppose I was just a nuisance. But why did she hate me so much? I didn't know the details of why she hated me so much. But as days went on like this, my work life which had been reasonably smooth up to this point, just became a painful one, shrouded in a cloud of darkness. Finally, one day, I had a big fight with Naomi. She had assigned me to work as usual, and I had failed at it. She blamed me for not producing satisfactory results and called me to another room. "You know why you were here? You can't do your job and you're always bothering people around you. Your university is third rate, you don't have any qualifications, and your house is poor and you are a loser. Observing your performance, I don't see a single sign of brilliance in your work. Hey, maybe it's time for you to quit this company." At this point, she was not only making fun of me but also my dad and my entire family. She had made fun of us and put us down. She turned away after saying what she wanted to say, just for her amusement. She had been using our family as a story to make fun. As soon as I heard that, I snapped. "Why the hell are you saying such a thing to me? Are you kidding me, you asshole? Have you ever done a single thing for my family? Have you ever taken care of us? I can take it if someone who has helped us says something like that. But you, who has nothing to do with us, have absolutely no right to say that to me." "What? Watch your mouth. How dare you talk to your boss like that?" I was already prepared to be fired at the time. It was a matter of course. Companies have a hierarchical structure. Indeed, I had defied the person who was in that position as my boss. I had spoken ill of her with all my might. There was no way I was going to get away with it. But I just couldn't stand it. I couldn't just let it go when she said such a thing to me. At this point, I thought about my dad. If I got fired from my job and became unemployed again, we would be poor and my dad would feel sad. I didn't want to do anything that would make him sad. That was the most important rule in my mind, and I had broken it. This was the only thing that remained undigested. "You know what's coming. I'm sure you're prepared for it now that you've spoken to me like that. I won't let you get away with it. I'm going to fire you for sure." Despite all these hard arguments, Naomi still didn't back down one step. On the contrary, her attitude towards me became even more vehement. Whether we were working or not, she made my work experience miserable. She was so intent on kicking me out of the company. But even at this time, I still wondered a little. Why does she hate me so much? With this question in mind, I asked my coworkers a little about the situation. I found out that Naomi has also been through some pretty tough times in her life. I learned a little bit about it. I became even more interested in her after learning that. I wanted to know a little more about her. So I asked a female colleague who knew her reasonably well. "Is that true?" It turned out that Naomi had a similar background to mine. She didn't have a father. Her father passed away in an accident when she was old enough to remember him. After that, Naomi lived with her mother. She worked desperately to raise her. But when Naomi graduated from high school, her mother's hard work took its toll on her. She got sick and was hospitalized. She seemed to recover for a while, but passed away despite the treatment. From that time on, Naomi was left all alone. However, after grieving for so long, she was not discouraged by this. In order to make her own weight in life, she worked harder than anyone else to get to where she was. It is said that Naomi was given the opportunity to start her life anew when she had an encounter with someone. At one time, Naomi was so depressed that she went to a distant shore and tried to kill herself. But at that moment, "You have to live no matter what. You should never take away your life." The person stopped her by saying so. This made Naomi reconsider her life once again. She reflected on the significance of her existence and why she was the sole survivor. She took to heart the new vitality that she gained from this experience. "If I am going to live, I will live it to the fullest. I will live a life that is second to none." She was able to think that way and from then on, she worked hard. She worked hard and developed a strong mentality to aim for a position above everyone else. That is how she came to be who she is now. Her past has shaped who she is now. I see. I thought about her a little. I understood that Naomi didn't become like that because she had a bad personality. She was just like me, or she may have had a worse life than me. It's not something I can compare, but I honestly felt that way. However, she led a life that was the complete opposite of mine. After going through a difficult experience, I aspired to connect with others joyously and harmonically. I made a new start with that kind of determination. But Naomi was different. She chose to lead a life of independence, not to be defeated by anyone else. Her family was poor for that reason. So she developed a complex against the rich even more. I will be richer than anyone else. Maybe that's why she began to think that way. Until that moment, I just hated Naomi. However, since she had lived a life similar to mine, somehow I felt a sense of familiarity or maybe even affection. A few days passed. Even so, her attitude was still the same. It seemed that her hatred for me had not disappeared. She still one-upped me and assigned work to me to make me make mistakes. Her actions was not going to affect my employment contract. Despite her abusive behavior, I managed to maintain my job to some extent. I had gotten used to her attitude. I sighed and started to balance my work and private life again. Then, I was able to work efficiently and had some free time. I got it. I can celebrate my dad's 60th birthday now. I had been putting off celebrating my dad's 60th birthday for a while. I figured it was the perfect time to celebrate. I made a reservation at a high-class restaurant in Miami. That's how I chose to celebrate his birthday without informing him. Happy 60th birthday, Dad. One evening, I took my dad out. It's on me. With that, we got into a cab together and headed for a restaurant. Hey, I didn't know that there was a restaurant around here. My dad, who didn't know anything about it, was a little apprehensive. It was obvious. It was a prestigious area lined with high-class restaurants. There was no way that a restaurant in such a place that ordinary customers would enter. My dad had no idea that I would ever go into such exclusive restaurant. A cab pulled up right in front of a restaurant. Hey, wait a minute. Don't tell me we are going in here. Among all the fancy restaurants in the area, that restaurant was known as one of the most prestigious ones. Come on, Dad. Let's go in. What? My dad couldn't hide his surprise, but I was sure that he was surprised and overjoyed. Seeing my dad surprised and pleased like that made me happy. Then, I sat down with my dad at the table in the back that I had reserved. Just for today, let's enjoy our meal as if we were celebrities. With this in mind, I enjoyed with my dad each dish that was brought to us one after another. At that moment, a few guests arrived at the table next to ours. There was a bit of noise, but we continued to enjoy our meal, trying to enjoy our time on our own. At that moment, "Why are you here?" Suddenly, I heard a familiar voice. It seemed that the person was talking to me. I turned around to see what was going on. There she was, Naomi Lee, sitting there. She looked at me and laughed. "This is a fancy restaurant. You are a loser and unpopular. This is not the place for someone with low standing like you." As usual, she one-upped me with a terrible attitude. But after I got to know her a little better, I couldn't blame her wholeheartedly. "Naomi, why do you keep saying things like that to me? Can't we just get along?" My dad was right in front of me. Somehow, I tried to calm the situation down. I spoke to her in a gentle tone of voice, but she still ridiculed me and laughed at me. She talked as if it were impossible. "You're making my food and drinks taste bad. Get the hell out of here, will ya?" This is not a place for poor people. She refused me flatly. I thought that we would never get along, but we stayed and continued to eat when...
Wait a minute. Are you by any chance?
My dad spoke as he saw Naomi. I was confused and looked at my dad. He appeared to know Naomi. Following his words, Naomi also looked at my dad. At that moment, "What? No way! You gotta be kidding me!" Naomi turned pale and stared at my dad's face.
I knew it was you. I recognized your voice. I didn't expect to see you here.
Immediately after that, I found out a shocking fact. When Naomi was about to take her life, it was my dad who stopped her. My dad's hobby for a long time was fishing. So in his spare time for work, even nowadays, he sometimes drives to the seaside a little far from here to go fishing. It must have been at the time that he saw Naomi. My dad noticed something was wrong and immediately rushed to Naomi. She attempted to let go of my dad's hand, but he restrained and stopped her. At this time, my dad said he recalled his daughter, in other words, my sister, Christina. He saw Christina in Naomi, and my dad remembered Naomi's voice clearly. He also remembered her face.
You promised me then that you would stay strong. But listening to what you were saying now, it seems that you have misunderstood that strength.
My dad's face was more serious than ever. This may have been the first time I saw my dad scolding another person like that.
Do you decide the value of a person by his status? Wasn't your family and mine similar? I heard that you have certainly made an effort since then. However, if that effort was to build the power to look down on others as if you were trying to force them out of the stage of life, I'm so disappointed.
Naomi just kept her head down, unable to say anything back. She just listened to my dad's words. And then, "I'm sorry." That was all she said. After that, there was silence. Their air seemed to be completely different from what it had been before. A few months later, today, I am still working at my company well. Concerning Naomi, she is still working as my direct supervisor, a section manager. But she has changed since then. The reunion with my dad, the man who saved her life, I wonder if it affected her. Her attitude towards me has completely changed since then. She never one-ups me or forces me to do something unreasonable. She just goes about her assigned tasks. Lately, I often spend time with her during break time. She no longer exudes a peculiar air of arrogance towards me. And now she treats me with honesty and sincerity. She no longer has a strange notion of status, and because of that, we are able to have honest conversations. She told me that she was angry with me because I had something she didn't have. Naomi knew about my past. But to her, I had led a life opposite to hers, and it seemed glamorous. How could our lives be so different despite our identical backgrounds? She couldn't grasp it, and when she realized it, her hatred for me grew worse. She said that she had been dealing with me with hatred in such a way. She did this because she was displaying unneeded bluster and arrogance. But she understood it, and she no longer puts on any pretense. In other words, she can now live an honest and self-actualized life. From this moment on, she and I are really interacting with each other. We could feel each other's presence. It is common for people with similar pasts to go on to live completely different lives. Living a life of deception and losing sight of our true identity can eventually lead to collapse. And then we will always try to regain our honest selves, our true lives. Perhaps that is how human beings are made. This is another thing I have learned throughout my life. Naomi and I are now considering such a lifelong bond. We have become closer. When we are together, we often smile a lot. She says that one day she would like to come to my house and enjoy dinner with my dad, while resuming our chat from the restaurant.